Welcome to Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host, and thank you for downloading today's episode. Today we're going to talk about reclaiming your joy. And a lot of you know I just got back from Doug's brother's funeral and Shiva and mourning and family visitation period. And I spent a week there actually getting to know a lot of family and friends, even more than I did before, and building some relationships and also having everybody come together in the grieving process. And everyone grieves in different ways. And again, this situation wasn't a surprise. It was sort of expected, which doesn't necessarily make it better. But I think anytime there's transition in life, many people, not necessarily me, I think I do a lot of looking ahead and trying to plan for things and realizing and seeing things. But many people really let go of stuff when something big like this happens. And they realize that while they were mad at this family member, or upset with them for not doing this or not obeying the rules that they thought they all agreed to, life's so short. And it's a shame, I think, if a lot of us live it under such duress and stress without ever really experiencing joy. So this show today was recorded during the month of our last, which we're currently in, Manifestation Challenge, March of 2019. And I recorded it with that in mind, that I do these challenges as a reminder to you that we're here to have joy. I don't have to tell you to be stressed out. And there's no one that wants to encourage you to be more stressed or worried or practical. But many of us want to help and experience ourselves more consistent joy. So it's not that we're being head in the sand kind of people. It's that if you look at the balance of your life, how much time do you spend being stressed versus how much time do you spend in joy, it's probably pretty imbalanced, which is why shows like today and the event that Ann and I are doing in July are here to offer people and offer myself. So it's going to be an extension for you to learn from, to participate in, to envision, use as a visualization, use as inspiration. As we get towards the end of the conversation, we are going to invite you to come with us on the journey to Panama in July of this year, 2019, to swim and be with the wild whales and dolphins to find and reclaim your joy. And if you're interested in that, you can go right now to jjflazanes.com/whale to learn more. There are a few spots left, and we really would love to get anyone who feels called to be with us and to experience joy and to not really have any excuses. Again, it's a limited amount of people. So if you're interested, come on over and check it out, jjflazanes.com/whale. So this is Anne's third time on the show, but for those of you that don't know her, she's created her whale and dolphin wisdom retreats to share her love of the dolphins, whales, the ocean, and nature with others. She has developed a close personal, spiritual relationship with the dolphins and whales and feels that they are her true soul family. Anne has been living in Panama since 2004 and feels that the community that she lives in is much like a human dolphin pod, as the family and the community are the highest priority and work is last. She feels that that community has the quality of life that the rest of the world is searching for. Welcome back to the show, Anne.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Today's topic is one that I think is important, especially during this time of the year, while we're in a retrograde and in a energy that's going to last actually a couple of months, where we are being called to examine the patterns in our life, the people that we spend time with, the energies that we spend time thinking about and cultivating. And reclaiming your joy is something that I think so many people are so far away from. They don't understand how to have joy. They don't have joy often enough. And even the people on my manifestation challenge, we get so into our routines. We do our work and our families and our habits and our patterns that we don't stop for a second and evaluate, am I experiencing joy? And how do I experience joy? So I really am looking forward to all of the wisdom that you're going to impart today. from your own experience, as well as all the people who've experienced reclaiming their joy on the dolphin and whale wisdom retreats, one of which that we're going to be doing later this year in July. So I'm excited about today's show. Thank you for being here again.
Well, it's great. And I love nothing more than sharing what I have learned and put into practice in my own life from the dolphins and whales. And it's easy, but the beauty of working with the dolphins and whales is that there's none of this heavy processing, and you don't have to go to therapy for years and years and years. It's like one trip, spending time with the dolphins and whales, and you're instantly brought into joy.
I would imagine that part of it is the magnitude of these creatures that we don't see. Now, I live in Southern California, and when I go to the beach and sometimes rollerblade or walk, I will often see dolphins. Dolphins are around. Now, I'm not that close to them. I'm several miles away, right? Because I'm on the strand and they're in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
But I can only imagine, which I will be experiencing, that when you're actually right up against a whale. I mean, how big is a whale?
Well, it depends on the species, but the humpback whales that we will be seeing when you come they're about, to put it into perspective, they're about the size of a school bus.
Yeah. So being up against an alive school bus in an ocean where I mean, just the sheer experience of it, I can imagine would be transformational because it's something we don't experience. And it's something that it represents to me, the whales and the dolphins in the wild. It represents, well, not even in the water. I mean, I've swam with dolphins in pools in wherever in different countries, and I know that it's still a awe-inspiring and magnificent experience. But to be in the wild, that magical reminder that we are not the only things on the planet. We are not, like, it puts things in perspective, right?
Right. It totally does. And it's even more amazing that when a dolphin or a whale clearly chooses to come to the boat, to come to us in the water, to come and interact with us, it's just, it's mind-blowing, it's awe-inspiring, and it's this deep sense of recognition that nature recognizes you, because we live so disconnected from nature. I mean, sure, we see the birds and the trees and the grass and the plants, but we don't interact with them much, and they rarely acknowledge us. But oftentimes the dolphins, you can see them off in the distance, and then all of a sudden they turn and they're heading straight towards the boat to come and play in our bow wave, and they turn and they'll look up and make eye contact with you. It's just incredible that, and they're doing it in such play and such joy, that it's not impossible for us to not step into that joy, this invitation that they extend to us. It's like, okay, I'm in this present moment. I've got dolphins in front of the boat looking at me. And so we just naturally step into that joy. And I always see this beautiful transformation when the dolphins visit, of people going back to that childlike state of play and laughter and silliness that we so rarely have as adults. And we're all hungering for it. And the dolphins just bring that out in us.
So my first career was actually in the entertainment industry. I did a lot of acting. I went to school for musical theater. And one of the things I really appreciated about the training of being an actor, actress, performer is to be in the moment. And that was an expression that I grew up with, and I learned a lot because I've been on stage since I was 3. I've been acting since I was probably 16, and I went to college. So it was like being in the moment, and being in the moment was, even though you might have been talking or feeling or interpreting, was this meditative beingness. It was I mean, that's, I think, one of the joys that I found out of performing, and more importantly through acting, because in a scene where you're not having to sing or think about timing or blocking, like, you're actually in your body in the moment, and there's nothing else that can get in your mind. And too often, and I've used that phrase over time, with people about being in the moment. And if you haven't taken an acting class or ever acted or performed, then you probably can't really relate to that. But what comes up for me when I hear and when I think about and when I'm reminded, I mean, that's why like this morning, I took a walk by myself. Doug's out of town, and I do the same route. But there's a cat. Her name is Snowy, and sometimes she's out, and sometimes she's not. And when she is out, I mean, it's what gets me on the walk. I get out because I'm going to go see Snowy. I'm going to go see if Snowy's out there. And then when I'm with Snowy, I'm in the moment because I'm petting her and I'm just literally, and of course, I have a couple cats. And so I really love that juiciness. Now, of course, these are cats. We see cats often. We're used to that. The idea of a dolphin and a whale, like you said, coming to you willingly, wanting to connect, wanting to play is, again, I can imagine because I've had certain experiences, but never this. And I've been with dolphins, but I'm excited to have this experience with a whale, which I trust and know that we will have, because again, it's this massive creature that has no other way to communicate with you except through physicality and frequency. And that acknowledgement, I can only imagine for a person. So what I want to outline today, whether you come on the whale trip with us in July or not, or go with Anne on a different excursion, I want you to think of the concept of reclaiming your joy and being in the moment. So how many times a day are you not present? Are you not fully in the moment? Because one of the best things about understanding being in the moment or being in meditative practice, not meditation where you're doing nothing, but just being present in the moment, is that there's no room for any negativity. There's no room for storytelling. There's no room for worry. There's no room for that, because if you are actually to acknowledge that you're in the moment, everything is perfect every moment when you're in the moment. So I want to hear, and I want you to help share with us so people can start to look for places in their own lives where maybe they're not going to have an experience with a whale and a dolphin the way that we're going to in July, but they can start to take these lessons and these interpretations and these experiences and see where they can extract out of their own life the opportunity to reclaim their joy in a deeper way than they're used to. And I know, Anne, you have a story yourself about how you even started this whole business, right, about the whales.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It is, when you are in the present moment, it is literally impossible to have fear, to have stress, to think about the past or the future. And so it just automatically brings you into joy. And we, in our daily lives, finding ways to be present is a huge gift to ourselves. And yeah, the whales taught me this really interesting lesson about abundance, because whales they represent abundance, being the largest animals on earth, and they eat the smallest. And as I like to ask, you never see a skinny whale. They're just huge, and they never struggle. They just open their mouths. So when I lived full-time in Panama, but me and my husband, we were really struggling for money, and I was in a new country and I didn't have full legal permission to work and trying to find a way. So I came back to California for a few months trying to find some work. I also used to work in the film industry training animals. So I was looking for work, and I was going to assist a friend who was leading a workshop in Northern California. And I was driving up the coast, and I was, I had very little money, trying to figure out, but you know how when you're driving, you get into that meditative state, and it just became this magical trip. And I'd never been up that road, and I was just enjoying the moment, not worrying about the stress of how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to eat? And I saw some splashing off in the distance and along the water. And so I stopped, and there were a couple of humpback whales playing around. So I stopped and I just enjoyed, and then they swam off, and I got in the car and I started just daydreaming like you do in the car. And I started thinking about abundance, and didn't even tie it to the whales at the moment. I'm just thinking about it and thinking about how everything in nature, it's easy. Like the birds fly around and there's insects or berries or seeds. The deer just put their head down and they eat. That, the fish swim around, the whales just open their mouths and there's food. In nature, food is easy. And then I saw this brick wall in front of me that represented my blocks and limiting beliefs to connecting with that natural flow of abundance. And then I remembered the story that I just read in a newspaper of these men from the US, from a city, that were lost in the Amazon jungle for 2 weeks. And they finally came out and they were starving. And I was thinking about that because I live in Panama. I'm surrounded by the jungle and there's so much food everywhere you look in the jungle. I'm thinking, how do you starve in the Amazon jungle? There's food everywhere. But it was like that brick wall. If you don't know, or if you believe there's no food, there is none. So then this brick wall, I actually started seeing, in my mind's eye, little bits of light peeking through, and then just saw myself breaking through that brick wall. And then after I did the weekend, and then I realized, oh my gosh, the whales. I just saw the whales. And they represent abundance. It's like, oh, thank you, whales, for this whole line of thinking. And then after the weekend, I came back and where I was staying in LA at a friend's house, and I thought, at the time I'd been doing a little bit of tour guiding to my husband's indigenous village. And I thought, well, why don't I just make my own website and see if I can drum up business that way? Because the freelance guiding wasn't doing a lot. So I made a website, never done that before. And I put it out, launched it in the world, got a great domain name. Within 1 week, I had an email from somebody saying, I want to take your tour. Can I give you a credit card for a deposit? And this is 13 years ago, and I had never taken a credit card. I had to call a friend. How do I take a credit card? And ever since then, it's been a steady flow of tour business. And we're we're in the TripAdvisor Hall of Fame, and we're getting all kinds of accolades. So it's all about opening up to abundance, to the natural flow that is out there for us. And all of that came from just seeing whales off the coast as I'm driving up on Highway 101 in California.
And you're even teaching people now how to hold retreats, right?
I am, yes. Because I've been running my own retreat since 2007, I've started a course. I didn't even realize how much I knew. And I bet many of you that are listening, I bet there's something that that you could teach that you don't even know you know. And I didn't realize how much content I had till I started creating it. And so I've created a dream retreat success program to teach people how to lead successful and profitable retreats around the world.
The link for that will also be where I have the video from Anne at Releasing What Weighs You Down, as well as some footage of some of the trips that she has done with the whales and the dolphins, and then more information about our trip, which is happening July 7th of this year, 2019 in Panama. And there are some spaces left. So that'll be at jjflazanes.com/whale, WHALE, jjflazanes.com/whale, and you'll have access to all of that. So I think that's an amazing story to get the inspiration. And again, it puts you in a different state. It puts you in a different frequency, actually. Let's talk about law of attraction for a second here. So you were tapping into another frequency, which then gave you the clarity and the ideas and the inspiration to do what you're doing now. And of course, have had all the success and the alignment that you've had, the true alignment with not only yourself, but with nature and with your purpose. So I think that's amazing. But let's talk about the people who come on the trip. I mean, do they have similar experiences? I know we've heard some stories in the past. This is our third show that we've done. And I remember hearing some stories that were listing what weighs you down. But why don't we share some of the experiences of people that take the trip, and how their lives have changed and how they kind of come back into who they are in very specific, tangible ways.
Yeah, it's been really fun to watch people when I pick them up at the airport, to this change, the beautiful change in their faces and the joy and the smiles and just the relaxation in their faces when I drop them off. But the real beauty is hearing about what happens as they go home and get back into their lives and the changes that they're called to make. For example, I have one gal who came on a trip and she just thought it would be a fun trip to do. She wasn't looking for any transformation, and she was working a corporate job, and she was okay in her life, um, and a single woman, and she just didn't, she didn't have that super joy in her life, but she was fine, like so many of us are. And she went back home after the trip, and she realized she had this story inside of her that she felt called to write down. So she started writing this story, and she would share with me in emails about her journey of writing this and the call, and how just spending time. And on the trip, she just got really, really playful and silly, and it was just really fun to watch her stepping into herself and stepping into her joy. And she wrote this really fun novel for teens, preteens, about this it's a magical journey, and this teenage girl and this whole adventure she takes, and she even put the whales in the story, and there's ETs, but it's a really fun, beautiful story about bringing more joy to the world. And so she's now launched this book, and she's just finished the second book, and she's won some awards, and it's becoming quite popular among the teen set. And this is something she never even thought about doing before she came on my trip. Again, she just thought she was coming on a fun adventure, and that was that. And it's really changed her life, and it's just beautiful to see her step into herself and go to these book shows and signings and sharing the world and helping people step into their own inspiration.
It makes me think of how we all, most of the time, and not all of us, so I don't mean to overgeneralize, so if this isn't you, don't take offense to this, but most of us work so that we can play.
Mm-hmm.
But we get frustrated that we're not playing enough, and then we don't allow ourselves to play because we think it's too much money, or I should be working, or I should be saving.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what's the point?
Right.
What's the point of, I just went through this last week on my birthday, because I originally scheduled us to be gone for a week, and then I started to get a little scarcity. And after being sick, I thought maybe we shouldn't go for so long. And then I tried to change the trip, but thank God, I'd already scheduled it, and that it actually cost me more to change it, and everything would have become more expensive, because I realized this is why we work. We work to live and to play, because our inner child, our inner being wants this joy, but so often we don't create any space for it. And what happens when we do allow ourselves to play and to have joy in this kind of way is, like, major shifts happen. We get into an alignment that we aren't usually in, of such a high vibration and frequency, that we get these ideas, we get these creative nudges and inspirations that lead us down a whole new path that we wouldn't have found otherwise. So I just want you to, as you're listening to these stories with Anne, just remember that you can choose to look at your life as, like, if you could take a step back, and instead of just thinking, well, I have to get this done, I have to get this done, I have to do this, and I can't do this because I have to do that, and recognize all the stories that we tell ourselves, and say, well, why am I working so hard anyway? What's the point? What do I really want? What do I really want to experience or have? And it really is joy. I think we're all searching for happiness, joy, love, and peace. But yet so many of us don't do anything to
Mhm.
invite it in or
Right.
to recognize it in our daily lives. Anyway, so I think that was a great story about this person who, because when we were away for my birthday, we went to Santa Fe for the week, and to
Mm.
Taos, New Mexico. And while it was an interesting trip and there were good things and not so good things, but it was new and different. And the
Mhm.
new and different allowed me, and I made a conscious decision to let things unfold. We didn't really have a plan for anything except where we were staying for 4 nights, then 2 nights, and then what we're doing on my birthday. So I just let it unfold. And I said, I'm just going to stay connected. I'm going to stay in alignment. We're going to do our practice and I'm going to see what happens. And the unfolding was very interesting of some of the ideas that came up, some of the things that came forth that want to be expressed or, focused on a little bit more.
Mhm.
So, but you don't get that normally when you're just in your repetition of your life. So anyway,
Right.
so let's hear another one.
Yeah, you bet. And I totally agree. And I love that you set the intention to go with the flow and to see what unfolds, because that's when you're on a trip, that's the best way. Because a lot of times you can pre-plan all you want, but until you really get there and see what's really there, then the magic happens. So that's fabulous.
Well, the
So you,
podcast
mhm.
came out of that. I went to a book I went to a writer's workshop to work on my third book, which at the time was not the one that I ended up writing. So that book that I went with has still not ever come off the page. And I went there with the intention of writing a third book and came out with a podcast. So we are here right now because I literally went to this workshop with the idea that I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to see. I know I'm being called to go, and I trust that something's going to happen. And a lot of things happened the exact opposite of what I thought was going to happen. But here we are today because I went to this writer's workshop and now I have a podcast. So anyway, uh, so on. Go ahead, continue.
That's fun. That's very fun. Yeah, another story that I'm thinking of is a woman who came all the way from Scotland on one of my gray whale trips in Mexico. I go every year, and the gray whales are really amazing because they represent forgiveness. And the gray whales were considered, when they were being hunted by the whalers, as the most aggressive whale. They actually called them the devilfish because they were the only species of whale that actually fought back against the whalers. And now, in those very same lagoons and bays where they were hunted almost to extinction, they now regularly, reliably come right up to boats. And you can lean over and touch them and massage them and kiss them. And so much so, there's so much trust these whales have in us that they literally will bring their newborn babies right up to the boat, which, if they can trust and forgive the human race for what we have done to them, almost wiping them off the map by killing so many, that now they've forgiven us, that it's such this huge gift to be honored by a whale that presents its baby to us. It's how do we not forgive ourselves? So it's a super powerful trip. And so this woman came from Scotland, and when she came, she was a little quiet, and she was, I don't know that sad's the word, but there was a heaviness about her. I mean, I really enjoyed her, but I could see that there was something weighing down on her. And she didn't really speak about it much, but again, spending a week with the whales and touching these amazing beings and immersed in their energy, again, she just stepped really into herself and just let go of all of that weight. And at the end of the trip, she was like a little kid, just smiling ear to ear and laughing, and just really felt like, for her, and in her words, like coming home. Like she found people she felt comfortable with, resonated with, and just really let herself enjoy it fully. And then through email, so again, I've kept in contact with her, and she's come on several trips now with me. And that she went back home, and she was, before the trip, she was really struggling. Her marriage was going nowhere, and she was feeling like he was very unsupportive and negative. She was part of this so-called spiritual community that wasn't living up to its promise, and she just really felt stifled in all directions of her life. And like there was nothing, there was no way out. Then she came on our trip, and she went back home, and it was funny. She sent me this email and she says, I can't stop the whales. They keep communicating with me and they keep coming in. And she didn't quite know what to do with that. So I supported her through that. And now she is saying yes to her life. And so she has stepped out of her marriage in claiming her own power, her own self, claiming that it's time to say yes to herself and not be surrounded by people who do not support her. And so she's stepped out of her marriage, and she's she's moving to the coast. She was in the mountains before. She's moving to the coast, the place where it's most likely to spend time with dolphins and whales of Scotland. And she's looking at creating her own retreat center and using the teachings, because now she's established through the trip, because on my trips I do lead meditations to help you connect, not just through observation and swimming, but to create this deep spiritual channel, this connection with the dolphins and whales. And she really embraced that. And so now she's creating her own retreat center. She's going to do her own retreats to teach and share what she has received from the dolphins and whales. And she sent me an email inviting me to come and join her and partner with her on one of these trips. And I think that would be a beautiful full circle of watching her step into and reconnecting to her passion, her power, her purpose that she didn't even realize was inside of her before she came on this trip.
What I love about the trajectory, if you will, the what happens after the trip, and sort of this awareness that people have of being able to connect. As you said, you help guide people to connect to their spirit dolphin, right? To the dolphin that their spirit guide, as well as to just take the lessons, take the healings, take the information and the messages, and then connect in new ways that they can do once they leave. I want you to speak to, because the first two shows that we did were before you attended my event.
Right.
And so there's the next element of the trip that we're doing July 7th is 2019, is that I'm also going to add my trainings, if you will, and teachings to the group. And you have now experienced some of my community.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to hear just any feedback that you have about, because I know that when you get together in other people's communities, let's say, let's take New Media Summit for an example.
Mm-hmm.
So New Media Summit is where we met,
right.
And that group comes from all over the place. Steve isn't necessarily someone who has a podcast where people listen and then come to his events because they're fans of his show. He is teaching people how to get exposure, have a business. And so he's got many different legs of how he attracts people into the room, but they're not all in the same way. Versus in my room, and usually at my events, the number one way that I've recently decided in the last 6 to 8 months that people come into the room is right here by listening to the show, because there's a different level for me of work, connection, and community that happens like instantly. What I recognized in this past January, it Releasing What Weighs You Down, was how prepared everybody was to dump their stuff. And I know it was your first event with me, and it was my third event. but there's been this evolution of people knowing what they're getting into because they listen to the show and they listen to me and they know the work that I'm promoting and the exercises and the things and the transformation. So it was amazing to like the heaviness of the first day of saying, here, I'm going to dump all my stuff. I'm ready to dump all my stuff because I want it to be cleared. And then the difference between the first night and the last day, and the
Mm-hmm.
lightness and the like the playfulness and like the community and the whole society. That's my what happens for me and what I see, and how that's different than random people who aren't connected through a single message. So what would you think, or what was your experience, and with, you know, in thinking about in July when we go, like how how it could be different than one of your other events because of me and my community and sort of what I bring and then what they also bring.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was really fun to watch you lead the room, and the people that you attract were really fun. I really enjoyed them. Every single one of them I can envision being great friends with. They were really wonderful people, and they were so ready to just dive in and do whatever it needed, whether it was painful or not, to work through and release. And as you were speaking, one word became really clear to me. And this is something that I do, and you and I both do this, and you did it really brilliantly in your event, and that is empowerment. And you really empower your people. It's not about, you have no ego involved in this. And that's what I love about you, is you are all about opening the door, providing many, many tools. And you have this huge toolbox that you can just pull from. And the fun part about my trips is that we have so much time on the boat together that it can be really informal, and we can just have these brilliant conversations that steer themselves, that I know that you're just going to come out and share your brilliance and pull out these tools to everyone who comes on our trip, to be able to, that they can take home with them, to empower them. So they've tapped on the trip, they'll tap into their joy and reconnect with themselves. And then you will provide these tools and your brilliance and this deep level of support that you give to empower them to take these tools home and step into their own power and fulfill their passion and dreams that they may not even know they have until they come on our trip.
Thank you for that. What I really am excited about doing and why I love doing retreats and doing events is because you get that moment to moment feedback about your alignment and about your connection. And we get to use real life situations to demonstrate and look at our beliefs and to look at our habits and our patterns, and to really, you can hear something and you can maybe try to apply it to your life. But if you don't truly, if you're not conscious enough on a certain level to really see it while it's happening, then it's harder to learn it because you think of it as an idea and an experience versus a reality that you're living every day. And I think what live events and retreats, the opportunity that it gives us is to really be present and to notice some of those limiting beliefs, some of those stories that keep us stuck. And I'm looking forward to actually combining metaphysics and law of attraction with this whole experience in Panama, because again, taking someone out of their environment is really going to be illuminating and easier to see when you're in alignment and when you're not, and to recognize, because you don't have, it's not so ingrained, the pattern isn't so ingrained because it's a new experience, you have no relationship with it, so you can't repeat old patterns, but patterns will be shown to us, and we'll get to see some of the stuff that, and be able to reflect at a distance. Having perspective is just so important. When you can actually take a look at your life and see from a distance, from an observer standpoint, what you do that doesn't support your daily living, it's easier to have that aha moment and go, oh my God, I do that. And that doesn't support me. And that doesn't help my life. And that keeps me stuck in this pattern, but I can't see it while I'm in it. I have to get out of it to be able to observe it in a different way. And so I'm looking forward to being able to make those connections, because I love being a problem solver. And thank you for the word empowerment. It is one of my favorite words, because, and thank you for also saying I don't have any ego, because I'm sure there are some people that think I do, but I really try to come from that place of wanting to dive in and acknowledge and be compassionate, but at the same time remind you that you have the power, you have the ability to connect on a deeper level in a bigger way, to really rise above and expand in ways that maybe most of us don't recognize or allow ourselves to grow to. And I'm guilty of it too. I was told that in my last relationship by my soon to be ex-husband, that he was holding me back. He told me, I am holding you back. And I said, I thought that's ridiculous. And I don't ever consider myself someone who doesn't allow myself to dream or to work for myself. I create programs and products. But then after it was all over, and then even just being with Doug, I realized that, oh my God, I was being held back, not by him purposely, but by the situation of me not allowing myself to grow beyond what I thought he would agree to or accept. And so now my world has opened up into a whole new, I mean, it's just, there's no limit. But you can't get that perspective until you walk away from something for a little while. And it doesn't mean that it couldn't have worked out and we couldn't have, but we're all where we're supposed to be on a soul level, and learned our lessons and moved on. But I'm hoping that people are listening to the show today, and because it's called Reclaiming Your Joy, and being able to step back for a second and think about the areas in which you don't allow yourself to experience joy, or you limit your joy, or you rationalize it down to, I shouldn't get it, I shouldn't have it. Yet at the same time, you're miserable, or you're depressed, or you're anxious, or you're really, really hoping for joy, but you yet are not doing anything about it. So if we had to go back and look at some of your most successful, and I don't mean successful in a monetary way, obviously, there was the story about the boy that we had in one of the last that you told at the event, and I'm pretty sure you told on one of the last shows. But if you had to go back and look at sort of the through line of what got them to the trip, or what consistent lesson they learned that they now live in their life, and how, whether someone comes on the trip with us or not, how they can stop for a second and implement some of these ideas even without going on a trip. Of course, we want you to come on the trip, but obviously there's only 12 people who can come, and we have some spaces left, but we can do another one in the future. But let's say in the interim, you're not coming on a trip. So how can the people who are listening to this start to just remember, do things differently, have different perspective? What would you say is some of the tips that people learned and gained from these experiences that someone else could do right now?
Sure. And there's many, and the dolphins remind us all the time, just play, just get out and play and stop doing, stop being connected all the time. Like, you just go out for a walk in nature, and don't even take your phone, just leave it behind. We don't need our phones all the time. Just go walk on the beach, walk in a park, just observe nature, sit on a bench and just watch the birds and the trees and life going by, so that we get more present with the moment and disconnect from all the I should be, I'm supposed to, all of those things. And then find ways to play in your daily life, whether it's get silly. I mean, if you work in an office, I dare you to bring a hula hoop to the office, right? Something just really crazy and silly. And people will look at you strange, but I bet they enjoy it too. Or if you don't have somebody that you can play with, go to a shelter and volunteer with some puppies. Just rolling around on the floor with puppies or some kittens, or go help out at a preschool and play with the little kids. They're the masters of play. Or go hang out with somebody who has little kids, and just don't visit with the adults and say, oh, kids, leave me alone, I'm talking. Get on the floor and play Lego and trucks and dolls or whatever. And there's ways around us all the time to play and be present. that we, in our busy, distracted lives, we ignore. But it's out there. So just be open to opportunities and take them and step in and reclaim your joy.
Excellent. Okay, so if you are interested in coming with us on the whale trip, it is July 7th. I think you said the travel day is July 6th, and it's a week, so we're ending on the 13th, I believe.
Right.
And there are some payment plans available. The most of the hotels and the food is included. Not all of it, but most of it is, and all the boat trips and the transfers and things like that. So I have the whole list on jjflazanes.com/whale, and you can see what's included in the itinerary. And most of the itinerary is what Anne is going to be leading, and then what's not on the itinerary is sort of what JJ is going to be leading, which is going to be a combination of sunrise, sunset movement and meditation, as well as, like Anne said, on the boat, instant, sort of in the moment tools to start to link and understand some of our habits and patterns in life that we could let go of, that we could transform and transmute into something more positive, and to really start practicing uh, higher frequencies and vibration and joy, and being able to pull reclaiming your joy into everyday life to live at a happier place, because it's what most of you want. That's why you listen to the show. So if you want more information, come to jjflazanes.com/whale, or just write to me through my website, jjflazanes.com, if you have any further questions. But thank you, Anne, for today's show. I think that reclaiming your joy is just something we all need to remind ourselves is available to us, and that we're not here to do, we're here to be.
Right.
We're here to play. We come in playful, and we always keep searching for ways to be playful. And so here's an opportunity to be playful, and we want to invite you to join us.
Thank you for having me. And as I said, and when we started, I love nothing more than to share what the dolphins and whales have taught me. And it would be such an honor and a deep joy to have any of you who are listening to come and join us on our trip with JJ in Panama to reconnect deeply with your joy and just have an amazing week immersed in the healing energy of the dolphins and whales.
Absolutely. We hope you come play with us. And if you don't, definitely take all of the tips that you learned today and start to insert more joy right now. Thank you all for listening.